January 2010. Where do we go? IMM Cologne. The place for national and international brands. You have to be there. Get the interiors of tomorrow.
Hello everybody. Welcome to this year's edition of a Trendbook. It's really more a kind of a research project, and it works in the way that you meet up in Cologne. Each of the members of a trend board are supposed to bring, let's say, roughly, I would say about 100 pictures and slides of things which are interesting or which has caught the interest of the members. And these are presented one after each other, and people comment it, and there's a discussion about things. It's really interesting to see usually that one image could be shown by a lot of different people, and you kind of talk together, why is it like this, and why is this happening, and so on. These people who are sitting here are, how would I say, extra sensitive to things which happen in society. And of course what happens in society will get back into art or design or architecture or things like that. So that is really the background. Every year 4 trends or movements are kind of categorized, and you could say it's what you feel of the 4 main movements in design. Why not 5? Why not 3? It's done on an axis. It's really very formal in a way. You have axis about commerciality, art, and etc. And you try to put all these things into that. And while you sit at that table and discuss, the people from the organization write all these words and put on big boards around the table. And then on the second day, you start looking at these words and kind of put together, yeah, this is interesting, and why does this thing surface there? Maybe we should move it to something else. Actually, when I looked at all the older books, that really happened, which people said would happen like half a year before. And I think that is quite extraordinary, actually. This is the book, this one. The people in my studio, when I showed them the book, they said, "Oh, this is much nicer than when you were in the board." And yeah, these are the 4 ones. Something which is called Trickery, something which is called Comfort Zone, Rehab, and Discipline. And I would like to start talking about Trickery, or rather, I would leave the word to Julio.
Yes, thank you, Eero. I'm very happy to be here with you. The way we worked, the way we used to work, is like a collage, like a dinner all together, where everybody puts images that is starting from specific points of view of everybody of us. The word trickery, from tricky, it sounds complicated, but it was a reason to talk about during the stage we had in June, just to introduce this theme, because we are surrounded by trickery. A lot of complicated things happen, a lot of overlayings, a lot of, I would say, desire of collection, extraordinary collection, some establishment collections, etc., etc. So, by my point of view, trickery is an ongoing theme. It will never end, but it's very good because it's together with Rehab. So it means that trickery and Rehab talk more or less the same language, from trickery to Rehab, and then discipline, and of course, all what it is. Things come somehow in a whole, in a holistic mood. It's not only to consider one theme or the other.
But this kind of you see that it says 4 words: illusions, fake function, narration, and staging. I think this year in Milan, I personally never saw. I've seen really many things, which are kind of telling stories and really trying to be something else what it seems to be. You know, sofas looking like pillows hovering in midair, or little lamps which looks like a collection of sticks and things like that. Okay, I'll move forward to what is called Comfort Zone, and it's really about about the home and trying to shelter yourself somehow from the ongoing world. A thing I forgot to say in the beginning, I think that the world economy recession, of course, has colored the design, what is shown, in a great way, and it makes, it sort of creates, of course designers are living in this too, and they are kind of doing things which kind of answers or gives answers or question to the economic situation. I think especially the comfort zone and the discipline thing has very, very much to do with the ongoing economy. And this is about Englishness and puffs and cakes and folklore farm and hobby bricolage. And
of course, when we met for the trend board this year, there was, as Eero said, there was one overwhelming thing that had happened in the world, which there'd been this credit crunch followed by this tremendous recession, the most drastic recession in like 80 years or something, which now surprisingly is over. It wasn't really that bad, was it? But at the time, it was, when in Milan in April, it was almost as if designers were using the economic situation as a chance to cleanse themselves, which resulted in the kind of pure forms that we'll talk about in the other trends. But I think also that there was something subliminal, almost accidental, that was also going on at the same time, in that there were lots of forms where designers were experimenting with pattern, with shapes that were kind of inflated, which were rounded, which were kind of candy colored. And I don't think any of them were deliberately trying to make furniture that looked like cakes. But the result was that they were making furniture that looked like cakes. And if you suddenly put all, and in fact, this observation came from putting all my images together for the trend board. It was like, suddenly I was like looking at a shelf in a delicatessen rather than a range of furniture. And it suddenly became kind of clear that by accident, designers were doing the opposite of what we were expecting them to do, which was, instead of saying, okay, there's a recession, we have to deal with this, we can purify ourselves, we can be clean, we can be all Bauhaus, it's saying, actually the opposite, we just want to hide in a big fat sofa and eat cakes and feel good and kind of isolate ourselves from the world. And that's kind of what it's all about. And the more you start to explore that idea, the more you sort of see it everywhere. Even to the extent that when we had our tea at the trend board in Cologne, they brought out some cakes, and they looked like little chairs, didn't they, on the on the tray? And actually, the puffs there is a kind of funny mistranslation, because the term I used was puffs, which is like an ottoman. Like there's a sudden return of those kind of squashy shapes that you put your feet on. But I like the fact that it came out as puffs, because it's like a pastry kind of thing. And also, the notion of bricolage maybe perhaps doesn't sit so neatly in this trend, but what we were talking about there is that, again, what do people do when they feel threatened? They go home, they sit in their sofa, they make a cup of tea, or they maybe start indulging in some kind of hobby. And so that the hobby aspect of design is what we were getting at there. That a lot of design looks like they didn't go to a shop and buy it. They went to the shed at the bottom of their garden, got some bits of wood out, and sort of made something that looked homemade. So a lot of designers are sort of using that aesthetic of, it's not industrial, it's not high-tech, it's something that a consumer could put together themselves in the kitchen after breakfast.
You mentioned really quickly Rehab when he talked about the first one, the Trickery thing. This is kind of very interesting part, which kind of has resurfaced the other years too, but it kind of changes itself a little bit. And as you could see on the four kind of sub-themes, it's about high-tech and low-tech, and sometimes high-tech and low-tech together. It's about manipulating greenery. I think it's really, really interesting to see a lot of the work of Japanese architects like now. All the work seems to be full of little pots with flowers in and experimenting with things and trying to do new things in design while still being kind of like eco-sensitive, and of course it's funny, it's detox. They're also like trying to get away from all the decoration somehow, and it's really about pure form. And I thought I would ask Bertrand a little bit to talk a little bit about this.
Still a lot to ask, because I think you said most of it, but yeah, I think this is the other way to react to crisis, is taking the opportunity to look at the world again and experiment and see, start from zero, which comes to very clean shapes and very bare shapes, to create again something new. And although I think it's been going on for a while, like, and it used to be like the eco trend where everything would be brown and recyclable, I think now it's much more white, as in a blank canvas where we can start from again.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, this from the eco trend, as Bertrand was saying, it's kind of like a scientific version of the eco trend.
Bravo.
So before it was all sort of granola and brown, as you said. Now it's detox in a like a volatile compound measuring sort of, we've got to use science to solve these problems sort of way. So there's this aesthetics that's not quite minimalist, and it's not quite the discipline one, which we'll see next. It's a more sort of scientific way of looking at how we're going to reimagine the world in a recycling and reuse and correct materials, which I thought.
Okay, so we will talk about discipline. What a thing to end with. And I am, it's really a funny name, I think. And it's about no jokes, no fakes, utility, which I think is really something which is talked about right now. Back to Bauhaus, which we talked about, and craftsmanship. And maybe Cecilia wants to talk a little bit about
I guess
this.
It's
Scandinavian.
maybe it's hard to call this a trend because this is going on for the last 100 years, and especially in Scandinavia, like going back 50 years. This is what we're talking about here. So yeah, it has to do with craftsmanship, with functionality, getting functionality into design again, because what have happened since the 50s or something. Why are you doing something? Because you need to use it. You need to sit at a table, on a chair, something like that. So getting back to those basic principles of design, and then using craftsmanship, natural materials. So it's no fake, no laminates, the raw materials.
Well, I thought that of the 4 trends that were identified, some of them were more, let's say, prescriptive than others as far as responding to, as you were talking about, the greatest recession in our lifetimes for sure. And it was interesting when we looked at across the board, some projects was obvious had started before the world started tumbling financially, and other things were quick to respond to it, and some things probably just got lucky. In this particular trend, it's interesting because, as Cecile said, it's always existed. There's always been this line of very pure, perfect design running through the world of design, even at the art design level. There's always been this kind of seriousness. But this year, it seems one of the more prescriptive in the sense that it's almost kind of a solution to what's happening now. It's a way to go forward and not, well, they all kind of are ways. Even the trickery is a way to go forward because you're hiding from reality. The comfort zone, you're protecting yourself with whatever things. The rehab, you're responding to ecology. But this one seems to really be responding in a positive way by going back to what do you really need kind of thing. This is what I took out of it more, which is absolutely what you do also, your work, much like that, I think.
So I would say thank you for sharing your thoughts with everybody. I hope you can make some sense of this. And if you can't, you could always...
If you can, let me know.
You can always read in the book. And actually, I mean, this is just a short discussion. It takes half an hour to read it. And I think it's well spent time. Thank you very much for listening.
Grazie a voi.